Hey, how's it going? I just got back from another busy time at the London Film Festival and I wanted to share it all, starting with Wake Up Dead Man. In the third installment of the Knives Out franchise, we see Benoit Blanc attempting to solve a challenging murder mystery once again. Monsignor Jefferson Wicks is a very unorthodox priest. He chooses to conduct angry sermons that serve as rage bait. He gives one of these sermons before ducking into a nearby closet. He then suddenly collapses with a knife thrust in his back. A seemingly impossible crime, but there's a logical reason for everything, right? Before my screening began, they played a video message from the film's director, Rian Johnson, who essentially asked us not to spoil any of the secrets. I'm going to do my best to honour this, while still giving an overall review. I thought it was really great and a thoroughly entertaining chapter to the Benoit Blanc canon. I thought it was better than the previous instalment, Glass Onion. I think I feel that partly to do with the fact that this one is a more thrilling, spooky film, which therefore makes it more exciting to see on the big screen. Similar to the previous films, Benoit Blanc isn't the main character. For Wake Up Dead Man, the protagonist is clearly Josh O'Connor. He plays a very troubled young pastor with a violent past. He fundamentally disagrees with the way Monsignor Jefferson leads his church. A protagonist like this does bring it closer to the first film, Knives Out, which focused on Ana de Armas's character. Though the plot is fundamentally different, both films see a team-up between a troubled protagonist and Benoit Blanc. Josh O'Connor is surprisingly in the majority of this movie. He really is the focus of it. The ensemble overall is consequently a lot weaker. Without saying who exactly, some of these characters have surprisingly little to do in this film. That being said, it's still a fun ride that works its characters like cogs in a Swiss watch. Rian Johnson has been repeatedly saying in interviews that these films shouldn't feel like crossword puzzles, but rather they should play out like roller coasters. That's definitely true. It's an interesting murder mystery, but it's also an atmospheric thriller with lovable characters you fear for, so I'd definitely say it's a fun ride. The Testament of Anne Lee. In 18th century Manchester, Anne lives under the oppressive nature of patriarchy. The film opens with some bleak and harsh sex scenes as Anne is essentially seen by her husband as a baby-making factory. She finds some solace in a group of local Quakers. They pray in a way that blends dance with worship. They move their bodies like a breath of life is being pushed through them. Early on in the film, Anne and her family are stunned by the movements of a shaker who jitters with authentic sense of ecstasy as he releases a confession. While she becomes integrated in this community, her husband back home is very cold and detached. She gives birth to 4 children who all die within a year. These experiences lead her to be admitted to an infirmary, and it's while she's there that she receives an enlightenment. She becomes born again as Mother Anne, a preacher with the intention of bringing the Quaker belief to America. I love films that depict a specific community. I love films that explore spirituality in interesting ways. I love films that commit wholeheartedly to their artistic sincerity. I thought this was a really cool movie. I can understand if people don't like this because it is certainly some high art stuff. There's a lot of singing and dancing, but I'm not sure I'd consider it a musical in the traditional sense. The singing feels like an extension of prayer, and it doesn't always seem removed from diegetic elements. The songs they sing are not complete verses, but broken sentences that often help the movie transition in quite a hypnotic way. The filmmaking is astonishing. The movie flashes images at you at quick succession. The cinematography you see is iconic and poignant, like oil paintings. In all honesty, I think it's a pretty epic film that justifies its format. Why tell this story as a film versus theatre or photography? Film is all about the moving image, and in this one in particular, you'll be immersed in a community where movement is fundamental to a cultural identity. It's a masterclass in directing, and I think only directors of a real caliber know how to approach sequences like this in exciting ways. The central performance of Amanda Seyfried is sure to have awards buzz. She plays a character driven by faith, and she's trying to resist the brutal world around her. She is the centre of this sorority of female characters, trying to help her define this community. So it's a wonderfully feminist film, and it's motivated by this familial loving bond. Under this lens, men riding on horseback in slow motion suddenly feels like the most haunting image imaginable. It might have bits that feel slow, but overall it's paced quite well. There's a ghostly narration that helps with both the telling of the story, but also adding to the atmosphere. It's a movie that made me feel more inspired by filmmaking, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again. Ballad of a Small Player. Set within the neon-lit opulence of Macau, the film focuses on Lord Doyle, a very shady figure played by Colin Farrell. Doyle owes a lot of money to pretty much everyone around him. His solution to this problem is to keep gambling until he strikes big. After that, he'll definitely stop gambling. Right? I told a friend of mine the premise of this film and he responded with, right, so this is a tale as old as time. And he's correct to say that. To some degree, this is a very predictable film, and it's the sort of subject matter that we've seen tackled time and time again. Ballad of a Small Player is a film that is obviously trying to evoke anxiety, which it does reasonably well. It's not at the dizzying heights of something like Uncut Gems or Good Time, which both tell the story of men who have debts to pay. It's also very similar to the film Win It All, which I really enjoyed in part because of the effective improvised comedy. I think to some degree Ballad of a Small Player knows that it's well-trodden ground, and the second half of the movie takes a deliberately different direction. The film becomes a lot more ghostly, which I appreciated, and it finds its own unique way of communicating gambling is bad. It's a tricky thing though, because it's trying to serve as an entertaining film about gambling, whilst also having a moral lesson. It finds its footing, and it's ultimately an entertaining watch. Not a standout film, but not a terrible one either. Edward Berger brings a lot of his skill in building tension. That's something we saw a lot of in his previous work, Conclave. Equally, the use of a dramatic soundtrack is also something carried over. The score for Ballad of a Small Player is quite operatic, which adds to this heightened tone. I wouldn't say it's a film that everyone should see, but if you're on Netflix and you need something amusing to check out, maybe give it a watch. Hamnet. Agnes, the daughter of a forest witch, falls in love with Will, a Latin scholar. Their love, whilst real, is tested by the most devastating loss. People who know me know that I really love the films of Chloe Zhao. I particularly loved The Rider, in which the cowboy Brady Jandreau plays a version of himself. He's a cowboy who's told not to ride horses anymore due to a tragic accident. I think the consistent theme across all of Zhao's films is a vulnerable masculinity. In Hamnet, William Shakespeare is depicted in a very humanist way. He is somewhat socially awkward and maybe even neurodiverse. He is deeply introverted, but he is also really playful. Early on in the film, we're shown how he struggles with his own mental health, leading to frustrated, emotional outbursts. Agnes is someone who finds harmony with the natural world. Interestingly, she is written in a way that complements Will. She's able to articulate her emotions, and she also has this gesture where she can understand a person by holding their hand. It's a very tender and considered film that entirely explores how these two characters grieve. So the film overall is a thesis about grief. Can we prepare our children for it? What regrets do we carry because of it? How do we manifest it? For emotional scenes, the role of Agnes is one that demands a great deal of physical expression. In the film, you see her grieve, but you also see her give birth in different settings. As a result, Jessie Buckley gives an extraordinary performance where you really feel grief as a physical state of agony. Equally, Paul Mescal's performance is beautiful and completely in tune with his work in Normal People and Aftersun. Near the start of the film, Agnes touches Will's hand and she says that she feels landscape, endless landscape. I think the performance Paul Mescal gives is one of deep introverted suffering, and it allows us to gain a new perspective on a very familiar Shakespeare play. The ending of this film is deliberately emotional. It's overwhelming, and for my taste, I really enjoyed it. There was also a lot of people around me openly weeping. I have a lot more to say on Hamnet, including the cinematography choices and the overall filmmaking technique, so I'll come back to it in a separate video. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. After the Hunt. Okay, so I'm a bit confused by this one. Julia Roberts plays Alma, a Yale philosophy professor who's very close to making tenure. She has a tight relationship with her assistant Hank, played by Andrew Garfield, as well as her favourite student Maggie, played by Io Debris. The film opens with a dinner party she's hosting. It's a place where they can joyfully debate the nuance of hot-button topics like inclusivity policies in education. The next day, Alma is disturbed when Maggie tells her that Hank assaulted her. Alma's reaction, though, desperately lacks tact, and suddenly she is the one who might be facing the backlash. I think there are moments of interesting directing in this. There's a tense dialogue scene at one point, which is told entirely through hand gestures of people talking. There are also some confrontations, which are told through POV shot reverse shots, similar to what we saw in Moonlight. That's all good, and the performances are generally good. I just don't understand what this film is adding to the conversation. It feels overwritten and busy, but at the same time it doesn't have a clear thesis to land on. It's not a very compelling film, in all honesty. That's strange for me to say because it's sort of pitched as a cancel culture thriller. But where are the thrills? There are revelations about characters in this, but I don't think any of them motivates an argument of how we should consider them, other than to say everybody puts on a performance. We all live out a lie. I think if you want to take on hot button topics and really go there, that's okay, sure. But where exactly are we going then? You have to be clear about that. There's also a subplot where Alma is having a mysterious illness. She keeps it entirely to herself and doesn't seem to seek any medical advice. This then has other consequences to her life separate from the main plot. I don't understand why this was a necessary addition. I'm really confused. There's some great Daniel Stolberg scenes of him being sassy. There's also an Andrew Garfield tantrum scene that's very akin to the one he did in The Social Network. I appreciate watching that. Overall though, I'm left scratching my head. If you disagree with this assessment, please leave a comment because I'd appreciate hearing that. For Luca's previous film Queer, I gained a deeper insight on the filmmaking approach, which helped me get a clearer sense of the movie. I'm hoping the same can happen for this one. There's so much talent involved in this film, and my current state is just one of confusion. Sentimental Value. At her mother's funeral, Nora, an actress, reconnects with her estranged father, Gustav. He tells her that he's written a new feature film and he wants her to take on the lead role. She refuses, and then Nora has to sit back and watch as her family home gets turned into a film set and her role gets offered to a famous Hollywood actress. Like a lot of people, I really loved Joachim Trier's previous film, The Worst Person in the World. The film is a tender, romantic comedy about a character constantly reinventing herself. It's an amazing film with a lust for life. I think Sentimental Value is also a very good film in a different way, and it's a worthy follow-up. The major commonality in both films is the sublime filmmaking behind it. I find Joachim Trier's films to be authentic to real life. His characters are relatable, and the way he explores tone is particularly interesting. His films carry genuine laugh-out-loud moments as well as tender, moving scenes. I think the nature of the subject matter has a huge impact on how he can push the emotions. Sentimental Value asks us to reflect on our own relationships. Can we excuse our parents for not being perfect? Is it possible to make up for lost time? There's a moment in the film where Nora says that her father can't possibly know who she is, and he responds, "I know how you feel because I recognize so much of myself in you." You're left wondering about the conflicting nature of an obsessed artist. Can you be caring when you're so preoccupied? Gustav seems to only really connect with his children when it concerns a project, and so you wonder about his intentions in each scene. In addition to this paternal dynamic, the movie also features a genuinely delightful relationship between two sisters. It's a really lovely thing to see. The music is gentle and well considered as we see these characters interact. Piano chords slowly building is paired with gorgeous visuals. I think so much of Sentimental Value is about the absence we feel in our relationships, that desperate loneliness and the resulting frustration. I suppose one of the main characters in the film is the house itself. The film talks about the generations of family that lived there before, the lives they lived, and how it had to change. These are the stories no one gets to fully see or understand. I think the film wants us to question what we see. There's another moment in the film where it's mentioned that Nora's nephew has started saying, "I see you." That's the key thing, isn't it? Can you really see me? And if you did, would you then understand me? As a filmmaker, Gustav gets to use his medium to pose questions. When his film is complete, he'll inevitably become a member of his own audience too. It's only then that he might start to get answers. It's a gentle and beautiful film that knows cinema can be most effective in simple, tender scenarios where characters really listen. Is this thing on? Alex is going through a divorce. As he adjusts to this new reality, he stumbles into a comedy club. They charge an entry fee for the bar of $15, but it's free if you sign up to perform. So Alex says screw it, and he goes up on stage to do an improvised stand-up routine. To his surprise, it doesn't go too badly, and soon he realizes he's discovered something brilliant. This is a place to heal his soul and nurture a new talent at the same time. So this story is based on the real life of British comedian John Bishop. How his world and the world of Bradley Cooper have collided, I really don't know. But I think it's really great. And the true story behind this is genuinely amusing. In real life, John Bishop's ex-wife attended one of his comedy routines, and this led them to reconnect and eventually get back together. That's a story that does indeed sound like a movie. Are there any real surprises in this story? No, not really. Is it a broadly entertaining and easy watch? Yes, absolutely. I think what it does best is respect the characters and be truthful with them without overwriting their dialogue. It's a well-constructed family story that focuses on the midlife struggles. It reminded me of American comedies we used to see in the early 2000s, like Judd Apatow's films or maybe even an early Noah Baumbach movie. I think if you watch this and you'd like something similar with deeper dramatic stakes, I'd recommend The Big Sick and the documentary Tig. Both are true stories and love stories. Both also deal with health issues as the subject matter, whilst also having genuinely funny moments. I'd actually say The Big Sick is a lot funnier than Is This Thing On? In this movie, there are several entertaining supporting characters, including one played by Bradley Cooper himself. He plays a struggling, self-obsessed actor, very meta-contextual. In fact, I'm starting to notice a pattern with meta films at the festival. I think Bradley Cooper's character quite often has some of the best lines. He is funny in this. The film works well with the scenes we're given, but I found it strange that we never see what Alex does for a job or meet the people he works with. I think there was opportunity there to explore how colleagues would react to Alex being a stand-up comic. That being said, the focus in this film should be on the relationship. That needs to be clear, and it is here, so that's really great. Rose of Nevada. A lost fishing boat reappears 30 years later with its crew still missing. A new crew assembles to use that boat, and it includes two young men, Alan and Liam. They go out and get an impressive haul of fish. When they return to the shore, however, they realise they've gone back in time to 1993. Additionally, everyone on the mainland is convinced that they are the original crew and not who they say they are. If you know Mark Jenkins' work, this may not be completely surprising to you. I must admit, however, that this is my first Mark Jenkins film. I know Bait was considered one of the best films of the year it came out. I think it's great that he's found his own way of approaching genre filmmaking like he did in Ennis Men. Knowing his reputation, I thought this was a great time to watch one of his films. I think seeing the main gala films at the London Film Festival is really great, but I always try and make room to discover something original that perhaps we may not see a wide release for. I thought Rose of Nevada was a very original British, slow burn, ghostly story. It utilises the British landscape and the Cornish community to effectively create a wonderful sense of eeriness. It's unsettling and mysterious to experience, and you're compelled because you know there's something deeper going on. Rose of Nevada presents you with a mystery, and it's a very compelling thing to see things tie together. Ultimately though, it's a film that's not concerned with the nature of the mystery, but rather it wants you to think about the characters. One of the young men is actually really glad to be considered someone he's not, and he slots himself into the life of a family that isn't his. The other is deeply disturbed by this reality, and he's trying to figure a way of getting back to his own timeline. Rose of Nevada wants us to consider the nature of our humanity. When things change, do we conform or shrink in despair? It's a brilliantly crafted film with some masterful transitions. Also, if you don't know Mark Jenkins' work, he takes an unusual approach to recording sound. He never records sound on set, so it's all re-recorded and mixed later. This means the actors have to dub in their lines. The result of this adds to the really unsettling nature. It's a fascinating film. I think for my taste, it left me with a little bit too much ambiguity, but this is something I'm still debating. No Other Choice. A manager at a paper factory believes he has the perfect life. A great house, a loving family, and 2 Labradors. He's the man who has it all, until, that is, he gets fired. He's now faced with a painful new reality. His world begins to shrink as they simply cannot afford the lifestyle they once had. There is also a terrifying culture and stigma around being unemployed. He attends group therapy sessions specifically aimed at the unemployed. It's a disturbing place where we see middle-aged men conduct mentality rituals, saying to themselves over and over again that they will find a new job whilst tapping their head. The problem is there's just too much competition going for the same work. If only all the competition could just disappear, then this guy might stand a chance. Now that sounds far-fetched, but perhaps there's no other choice. I thought this film was really brilliant in the way we've come to expect from Park Chan-wook. It's very much in tone with recent releases in Korean cinema, in particular Parasite. It's dark, upsetting, and hilarious. It's a film all about normal, suburban people trying to do murder, and in that sense it reminded me of Fargo. This man, trying to commit murder, still has to function as a husband and a father. So one of the genuine issues he faces in this film is scheduling. I also found it really amusing that the job our character is chasing is in a paper factory. That feels funny to me. Apparently this is a cutthroat world where the candidates value paper as a fine art most people would misunderstand. The ludicrous nature of the circumstances here are what you expect from a satire. It's a very compelling watch, and I didn't know where it was going. It leaves you on a note that again mixes bittersweet feelings. The story has a resolve, but it also paints a dark picture for the world today. It's also a disturbing view of the way the world is evolving. If you love Korean cinema, this is definitely worth checking out. Speaking more broadly though, there are filmmaking techniques in this that are really magical and definitely something to study. J. Kelly. I unfortunately couldn't make my screening of J. Kelly. Luckily though, my friend Harry attended the UK premiere, and he had this to say.
J. Kelly has a lot on his mind. The eponymous movie star in Noah Baumbach's latest comedy drama is entering the twilight years of his career and beginning to wonder if it was all worth it. As he's set to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award, Jay's relationships strain once more under the weight of his fame and success, a painful reminder of the sacrifices he's made to get to where he is now. George Clooney essentially plays a heightened version of himself in the film, one that is much more self-centered than his real-life persona, we assume. Nevertheless, he is on charming Clooney form here, supported by a talented cast, no doubt drawn to a very lively script written by Baumbach and Emily Mortimer. Adam Sandler gets a refreshingly down-to-earth outing as J. Kelly's long-serving and long-suffering agent, but I loved Riley Keough's performance the best, as the estranged daughter still grappling with the idea her dad wanted to spend more time on movie sets than with her. That tug of war between our personal and professional lives is universal to us all, and Baumbach and Mortimer realise comedy is the essential ingredient here if we're to invest at all in the philosophising of this privileged Hollywood megastar. But I think the film only really works because of Clooney. He is J. Kelly, and, inflated ego aside, J. Kelly is him, creating this meta-narrative that really becomes evident in the closing scenes, and that adds a satisfying layer to the whole thing. It's a gentle film, one that wears its comedy lightly, and that might be accused of being self-indulgent. But I'd say it's another fun Baumbach feature.
As the London Film Festival progressed, I definitely started to notice a pattern. Meta-contextual narratives, films about artists struggling to communicate their feelings. In Sentimental Value, there's a visual gag where Stellan Skarsgård tries to clean up a kitchen spillage by using an entire kitchen roll as a sponge instead of just one sheet. I found it so strange that Bradley Cooper does the exact same joke in Is This Thing On? I'm curious to know if there's some strange way filmmakers are being influenced here. If you saw any of these films or you're looking forward to one in particular, please let me know in the comments. I had a really enjoyable time at the festival, and I'd be genuinely interested to hear from you. I read all the comments and I try to respond to as many as I can, so let's continue this conversation. Please also consider subscribing and leaving a like on this video. It really helps me out and I genuinely appreciate it. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.